Hello, everyone out there today. Welcome to our podcast. Champions are built with Coach EJ, the brand, and
Coach Aaron the Source. Good morning, EJ.
Lauren Aaron. How you doing today, man? What's
All
up?
right, fighting these allergies.
Yeah,
But you've got a good topic for us today.
right,
Pretty
right.
interesting. Uh, might even say could possibly do some athletes some good at this time in the season. We've got what, high school baseball?
Hey, Aaron, it's
And
May 3rd, man. They've been at it for a while now because of the rain and stuff, but
yeah,
they've
yeah,
got games. They're at the end of their season almost. I think they have playoffs coming up
that's right. They do.
the
This
following
week.
week. Yeah,
That's
this
right.
week. For some of them this week, for some of them the following week. But it's starting to get hot and heavy right now, man, out there. Some good competition. I've been out watching some games, watching a lot of our guys that we train together, uh, get out there and get after a little bit. And it kind of led me into you and I discussing some of the things that we're going to discuss today. And that's about a player's confidence. Why do players lack confidence? And that's a big deal for me. Why do athletes in general lack confidence when they compete or if something bad happens to them? It's like, what happened to their, what they say, piss and vinegar in them that gets fired up and they start saying, hey, I'm all right. I'm going to get the guy the next round, or I'm going to get the guy in the next race, or I'm going to get the guy in the next play. Where is that at? And I don't see athletes in general and whole, fight through that. I think that's a big discovery for you as an athlete is to kind of power through that and discover who you are. And that builds confidence because you can call on that when times get tough, Aaron.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty complicated to me because I'm always thinking now I'm thinking, okay, well, how can we help athletes with their confidence? And I think two things come to mind. One is we talk about a lot of these traits like discipline and confidence, and I tend to always just kind of what always seems to ring in my mind when we're talking about how to approach these. Yeah, some of us have different levels of these innately, from just our own uh, experience, family experiences, and just whatever makes up our personality.
Right.
But I always look at, okay, well, how can I help a kid get disciplined, or how can I help a kid get confidence? And the two things that always, or three things that always come back to me is I think any attribute like that is a skill that can be developed.
Mm.
And it's kind of like nature versus nurture. I think confidence is something that's nurtured in people, and it can be nurtured in athletes. Yeah, you have a certain amount that nature gives you, I guess, from just your personality and how you know, Lord made you. But so I'm thinking it's a skill that can be developed. I'm
Okay.
thinking it takes time, so it needs to be time in, and it takes time in the right environment.
Oh, key right there.
Yeah. And so I think that's where we can help athletes is creating an environment that fosters confidence. Now, I'm going to say a lot of athletes spend their time in these echo chambers or these environments that foster false confidence.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's where the problem lies because we're again kind of in an era where things are always gray. They're not always cut and dry.
Right.
You've heard us talk about the eighth place trophies and
You're
you
right.
know things like that, and participation awards, and non-competitive types of maybe formats that young athletes are put in. And there comes a point where the emperor finds out he ain't got no clothes on.
Right.
And, and you
Right.
know, and they find out they don't look good naked.
Right.
And that is a big confidence blower, you know, to these kids when they've kind of been propped up, for lack of a better term, for a lot of their lives, you know, with the unicorn stickers and rainbows and all the rest of that stuff, and everyone saying, you know, all these positive affirmations. I think athletes get into, like I said, that they're in that environment, and then when they get into sports, which is pretty much, you know, hey, win or lose, cut and dry,
Right.
and the stakes are higher, they can't always navigate that. So
Mhm.
those are kind of, you know, my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
And so my thing is, how do we create an environment that instills confidence, but that's honest?
Honest confidence. Right.
So that's honest with the athletes so that they really see where they stand, where they understood, where you know, they're at. I mean, again, we talk about the whole terminology thing. Everyone is elite now. Everyone is select now. And because all of these terms have been so, you know, hazy now and convoluted, I don't think athletes truly know where they stand until they're exposed.
Oh,
And
that's
and that can be, you know, a big blow. So what do we do as coaches and athletes and parents? I think we need to start with the honest assessment and creating an environment where they're getting good, honest feedback that, you know, or criticism that builds versus breaks them down. Because yeah,
mm,
they get in the moment and they falter and now they can't handle it, and some of them go into these spirals. And then lastly, I'll say you can even add expectations onto that.
right.
uh, you know, false or improper expectations
Mm.
that aren't reached, all of a sudden dash an athlete's confidence. So I know I kind of went a lot of different ways with it on that, but that's kind of, you know, how I see confidence in the big picture of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I like that. I like what you said, Aaron. I think something that our listeners can relate to a lot, and this is tough for parents or coaches out there. Be honest with your athletes, and when you're given an honest assessment, it's a two-way street with the coach giving an honest assessment in a way, in a manner where the athlete can grow and learn something from it. And the assessor, the coach, or whoever it is, it's not you're trying to break down the athlete. You're trying to uplift. And I think the key word that you said after honesty is build them back up
right,
because you want your athletes to be successful. At least I do on my teams. I want all the guys to be successful because that only makes the team better.
right.
Need to break them down and have them get into their heads. I hear this all the time, Aaron, from parents, from athletes. Um, my coach got in my head.
Yeah, yeah,
Coach is in my head, and being a coach, you're giving this honest feedback, but you also have to, build them up and say, hey, listen, if you do this, this can happen, and this is what we want to happen
right.
instead of playing that like gray area with an athlete. I think
Yeah,
that's the
and I
gray
think
area.
that's
Yeah. And the
yeah,
gray area is bad for an athlete, right, Aaron? I
yeah.
mean, I just, that's tough, man.
And I think you hit the nail on the head is because, you know, coaches and trainers and people dealing with kids nowadays have to, in some instances, or feel like they have to tiptoe over the feelings of athletes and parents, and have to be worried about the backlash. They aren't completely honest,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that, you know, feeds into it. So coaches can also be the blame because, and you've got the whole infrastructure of youth sports where it's kind of pay to play, and you kind of just got athletes out there who are just filler, and they're paying the bills. They're not your select guys, but they're paying the bills, and you don't want to scare them away. And I think a lot of athletes get caught in that area too. But to make parents happy, they call them, this is our advanced group or this is our select group. And it's like, they're really not,
Right.
And again, I talked about it before in some of the other podcasts. I'm just big on stratification. There are levels, and I think it's okay to tell an athlete that you're at this level, but not just tell them they're at that level, but say, hey, okay, this is how we can get you to the next level.
Right.
This is
Right.
what it's going to take.
Right.
Now you have to decide if this is what you want. I mean, I have those come to Jesus talks all the time with athletes. Where they come in and they're a junior and they throw 80 and they want to play baseball. I said, well, hey, look, you're a junior, you throw 80, you've got this summer. There is no tomorrow. Maybe we
Yes.
can get you to 85 or something, but
Yeah.
you have to be honest with these athletes at where they are, and then beyond that say, hey, let's look for some solutions. You may not always have the solution, but let's look for some solutions and let's see realistically where we can get. But yeah, there's a lot of naked emperors running around out there. uh,
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I like
and
what you said, Aaron.
it's
I
not a
mean,
good look.
no, it's not a good look. Aaron, I think you said something really important about, being realistic with the athletes and saying there are solutions out there. Um, that gives athletes confidence
Right,
when you say it like that.
right.
You know, that, athletes lack confidence because people who are influential in their lives as an athlete sometimes do not use the right language
Yes,
or
yes,
think about what
yes.
they're saying that could impact that player because the players live on what I call this kind of like on the ledge, Aaron. Okay,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
or a teeter totter,
Right.
and they can go one direction or the other. And athletes aren't built with this confidence, like I'm there, here I
Yeah,
go, I'm
yeah,
there, and nothing stops me.
right.
That takes time in, as you
Yes.
always say, time's in, work that needs to be put in.
Mm-hmm.
And through that work, those are experiences. And from those experiences, it hardens you and you figure it out and you build this confidence. Well, everybody's not built that way. In
Right.
fact, probably 1% of our athletes are built that way
Mm-hmm.
that come to us. So
Right.
we're always trying to build confidence and get them to believe in themselves. And once they have that success, then man, they take off, right? They take
Right.
off and they do that. So I think it's important that parents, if you're out there listening, surround yourself with a good team of people that can help your athlete with their mindset. But more importantly, I think when you have those people around your athletes, um, it gives them confidence too.
Yeah.
And the athlete needs to have a relationship to be able to communicate. I think a lot of times, Aaron,
Yeah.
athletes don't have confidence because they don't know how to communicate to a coach
Right.
or to a trainer or whatever the case being. That hurts an athlete's confidence because they're always guessing or they can't talk openly about this is what's going on. How do I get better? What do I need to discover? What is the solution? They
Right.
don't know how to express themselves in terms of communication. I see that being a problem in confidence is the athlete's lack of the ability to communicate properly or
Right.
just say what's on their mind. I always tell them,
Right.
hey, put it in your words. I don't want it in my words. Tell me how you really feel. How
Yeah.
are you dealing with that? I want to hear how you feel so I can try to help you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's okay to tell them, hey, it's okay to feel that way. Okay, now let's figure this out. And actually, here's a maybe a related story. Okay,
Okay.
Va Clements. We just had him on a
Right.
podcast a couple weeks ago. Went to Nebraska. Um, was getting ready for the NFL combines. Had his pro day. Well, right before his pro day, he did a boneheaded move and went out and practiced with his old junior college team, and he strained his hamstring.
Right.
And so he didn't have a really good pro day because he couldn't sprint. And he texted me and told me, hey, yeah, this is what happened. It's like, man, I think I'm done. You know. And I
Right.
said, look, destination is the same. We're just taking a different path now.
Ooh, I like that.
And and he kept working out.
Okay.
Lo and behold, just a week ago, he's the number one, what do they call it? World pick for the Canadian Football League.
Whoa. Hey, all right. Hey, that's
So
great.
exactly. So
Great.
here is his confidence was shaken. He was like, "Hey, I guess I ruined my shot. Everything
Right.
is over." I just said, "Look, the dream is still alive, and that destination where we want to go is still there. We just now gotta have to take the route that you didn't think you were gonna take."
Right. Right.
And that got his confidence back up, and he went back out there. Fast forward a year later, number one pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think again, presenting athletes with some encouragement, with some solutions, you know,
Mm.
think helps a lot to get them back on track.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you've had moments like that with your athletes, and I'm sure there's moments where you've said things to athletes that you didn't even know you said that you know sparked that sort of thing in them. So I think part of that confidence comes from how a coach, a parent interacts with that athlete, verbal and nonverbal. If you got your face turned up every time they're at bat, that's not going to instill much confidence. You've got
Right.
a coach saying, "Okay, all right, this one's an out." Before you walk up to them, and believe me, I've heard that one. And
Exactly.
unfortunately, he was right. But it's not something I wanted to hear, walking in the batter's box, on deck circle.
Oh man.
But I don't know. But for me, even at that age, 10 or 12, I heard the coach say that. I was like, F you.
Yeah. Well,
I'm getting ahead. I'm
that's
getting
what I
on.
mean. I
Yeah.
mean, competitive spirit.
Yeah.
Where's
So,
I always say this, Aaron, where are athletes' competitive spirit that is built in them through competition? Have we
right.
made it too easy at a young age, and you said this earlier, to have the participation trophy where competition doesn't have value anymore?
Right. Well, exactly. You just said value. I mean,
Right.
does a win feel like a win and does a loss feel like a loss? Because when I was younger, I felt that win and I felt that loss.
Right.
And I think there's been a period of time where we've conditioned kids to be indifferent to the outcome.
Yes.
So they're not vested. And I just don't see I saw someone's podcast just not too long ago, and it was a famous guy, baseball player or something, or maybe football player, and he was talking about how little leaguer, he's a pitcher on the mound, not getting people out, tears flowing down, and I'm like, oh shoot, I can relate to that. But he also said I was just so vested and so competitive.
Right.
And again, that's an extreme response, which yeah, parents should,
Yeah.
help their kids work through that so that maybe that's not the response they have. But again, I think there's just an indifference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think, I know you're right. There is an indifference with that. And I think we've pacified
mhm,
the value of competition. And when you do that, I think it affects players' confidence.
yeah,
I really believe that
yeah,
because, You know, if they go 0 for 3,
Mhm.
they're like, oh, I'm just moving on to the next game. It doesn't affect me. And then if they go 3 for 3, oh, I'm moving on to the next game.
Yeah.
The value of competition and competing and winning and losing, we've pacified that with athletes. So, and I hear this from top to bottom, whether it's a professional scout. I was at a game the other day talking to 4 scouts,
Hmm.
professional baseball scouts,
Hmm.
watching a high school game, and this kid's out there struggling. The kid's struggling. He's thrown 99 pitches and gotten 12 outs. And you and I discussed this.
Yeah.
You know what I admired about that kid? His confidence and his competitive spirit to keep coming at you. And
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
down. He was down 4, 5, 6-0, in the fourth, but he was not letting up. And
He
I
didn't
go,
ask to get cut. He didn't ask to get pulled out. I love
no,
that.
this kid
Love that.
said this, I'm battling
Yeah.
and I'm giving you the best I have. And that showed me a lot that kid, even though losing,
Right.
he believed in his stuff. He was still throwing the same pitches, believing he could
Yeah.
do it. Maybe he threw too many pitches,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Exactly. That's another.
that's another story. That's
Yeah.
another podcast. But what I liked about the kid, and I thought it was the most interesting case on the field that day, that kid, no matter what the score was, his confidence in himself to stand there and battle and not complain when guys were making errors behind him
Right.
or not lose or just his mannerisms, his energy, his uh, is just presence on the mound was B plus. And I'm going, that kid's confident. I love that, And confidence doesn't mean that you always win.
Yeah. That's right.
So I thought it's pretty interesting there, and I think it's a great subject today to talk about, discuss, and you know, we want athletes to have confidence. It just brings on. It can only lead to positive things,
Right.
if done the right way. If done the right way, if they truly believe it in their heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
good deal, man.
Yeah.
We just got to we got to quit desensitizing these athletes to the outcomes. They've got to matter at some level
Right.
because you are going to get to a certain point where it does matter.
Hmm.
And those who care more about it than you do are going to come out on top, and you're going to be found wanting, because sports gets more and more competitive. It matters more and more as you go up.
Right.
You've got money, scholarships, real championships. I'm not talking about the 9 and under valley, whatever,
Right.
stagecoach classic, whatever, that no one's going to remember. So you have to develop that mindset. You have to have that mindset because no one's going to have you on their roster if winning and losing doesn't matter to you. I mean,
Right.
unless you're like that guy on the Angels, who's it, Rendon or something? That's just a
Anthony Ren,
stud.
yeah, third baseman,
Yeah,
right.
who's such a stud. He made it there, and yeah, he's like, yeah, but how many of those? How many of you out there are him? And
Exactly.
I would say his days are numbered too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Especially with Ron over there at Ron Washington over there in Angels, trying to get those guys to turn.
yeah,
Hey, trying to get that mentality to change and,
exactly.
and to make them competent. So, hey, great subject today, Aaron. And we're gonna sign off here on our Champions Are Built with I'm Coach EJ the Brand.
And this Coach Aaron the Source. We'll see you.